All right, good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome back to the recap. Michael D'Angelo, all by myself, all by my lonesome this week. Mr. Big D, Daryl Ortiz, has the weekend off, but he will be back next week just in time for Bash in Berlin. I think it's Bash at Berlin, I keep thinking of Bash at the Beach, Bash at Berlin. It's coming up next Saturday, a week from today, actually. So we'll be back for that. So you've just got me this week to kind of walk you through all the ins and outs and happenings and all that good stuff from Monday Night Raw and from Friday Night SmackDown. So let's just get right into it. So Monday Night Raw, we'll keep it brief. Opened the show with Randy Orton. It was funny because Michael Cole actually said, we're less than 3 weeks away from Bash in Berlin. And I'm like, it's like 2 weeks away, a week from Saturday. He did later correct that and mention that it was a week from Saturday. But Randy Orton came out, cut a promo, talked about Gunther making things personal, and we talked about his dad and his grandfather. And then, of course, you got the expected interruption from Gunther, which he came down. And then Gunther basically told everyone to shut up. They went back and forth, jawing and all that. Made a few threats during this time. Randy Orton got jumped by Kaiser, and then the numbers game took down Orton. And then nobody came out to help out Randy Orton for some reason. I was a little surprised by that. This was kind of the teaser for the main event, which was going to be Randy Orton versus Kaiser. So more to come on that one. Fine opening promo. They got to promote their title match, obviously, coming up at Bash in Berlin. So that's how we opened up the show. And then the first match that we got for the night was Sheamus versus Pete Dunne. Or Pete Dunne, as Pretty Deadly likes to say. This one was a good match. It was hard hitting. You know, they've been building this rivalry between Pete Dunne and Sheamus for the past several weeks, back when they were the Brawling Brutes and the falling out and all of that. So it's a continuation of that storyline. Very hard hitting match. Sheamus got all busted up in this one, like he always does. He wears a lot of damage, obviously, because of his fair complexion. I understand exactly what he's talking about. I wear damage pretty easily too. So he had lots of cuts and welts. It was a great match. Ending to this match was fantastic, by the way. There was a sequence where the whole time Sheamus was favoring his hand that had been injured the previous week. And so you had Pete Dunne was just targeting that throughout the match, which made it a little bit more even. There was a point at the end of the match where Pete Dunne kind of got Sheamus's hand and pulled it through the middle turnbuckle to trap it there. And then he ran. It was a very cool sequence because he runs and he kicks him in the hand. And then the whole crowd reacted to that because it looked brutal. And then Sheamus tries to get up and then he rips the whole turnbuckle off and it flies through the air, and the crowd reacted to that because it looked awesome, and then immediately hit the brogue kick and then got the pinfall 1, 2, 3. So Sheamus victorious over Pete Dunne. Great closing sequence. It was 3 big pops in a row, so very cool. Great start wrestling wise to Monday Night Raw. After that, we headed into, it was Xavier, Kofi Kingston, and Odyssey Jones. Xavier and Kofi rocking the Ninja Turtle gear, which looked pretty cool. I liked it. And this is the continuation of the seeds of dissent. There's a lot of seeds of dissent being sowed through numbers of teams and individuals throughout WWE going on right now. But this is for Xavier Woods and Kofi Kingston. And they were kind of chatting backstage and, trying to clear the air on things. Kofi pretty much clarified, hey, I'm not trying to replace Big E with Odyssey Jones, and they talk back and forth. And there was a moment where Xavier's kind of nodding, and he goes, you're right, I'm the problem, I'll fix it. But there was just something, little sinister undertones there, so obviously I think we are headed towards a heel turn here. Maybe something that'll progress as we get to Bad Blood. They're trying to set up a lot of bad blood between everybody. So this could be the continuation for that. And then we got a brief promo with Ivy Nile, now in full heel mode, after betraying Maxine Dupree the previous week, talking to American Made, and just Maxine got what was coming to her, and they were going to have a match that was coming up next. So this is the next match of the night. Maxine Dupree versus Ivy Nile. So this one started off pretty hot with Maxine doing the heel shtick before the match started. Ivy was in the ring. She does the thing where she kind of does the dip kind of push up on the ropes to show off her strength. And then as she had her back turned, Maxine ran and hit her with a drop kick. So heel tactics coming from a face. Not sure I like that. I like my faces to be pretty overly faces, unless you're going to be one of those Stone Cold Steve Austin anti-hero kind of faces, but not everybody's Stone Cold. So certainly Maxine Dupree is not. She hit the drop kick. A lot of brawling outside of the ring with her hitting spots. Now, the bell never rung during this match because it was like an immediate interruption by the Wyatt Six before the bell got rung and they got back into the ring. And then American Made came down and Chad Gable. They were all in the ring. You got Sister Abigail, Sister Abigail, Nikki Cross, who essentially played the part of taking out Ivy Nile. And then you had kind of the overall brawl. Uncle Howdy ended up hitting the Sister Abigail on Chad Gable. So you had that happen again. It was a nice sequence. Like we've seen this a lot where they kind of appear and they just attack American Made. But this is the setup for apparently next week we are getting the official in-ring debut of Uncle Howdy. So Uncle Howdy versus Chad Gable is going to be next Monday night. So looking forward to that. Looking forward to seeing more of what Bo Dallas is going to be doing for his move sets. We've just seen the couple of times where he's hit the Sister Abigail on Chad Gable at this point. So looking forward to that. But this was real brief, more of a setup for the Wyatt Six. Apparently nobody's moved on. I think Big D and I talked about it last week and we're like, I guess they've moved on and they're going to do something else because there was no interruptions with American Made the previous week. Guess not. It is going to continue. After this, we got the pre-taped promo with Damian Priest and Rhea Ripley. And this is the promo with them trash talking, obviously Dominic and Liv, because they've got the match coming up at Bash at Berlin. And this one was a little cheesy for me because they would start out with Damian Priest was talking and you got Rhea Ripley in the background and she's doing all the shoulder rolling and like hand wringing and then she switched and then Damian Priest was in the back and then Rhea's doing the promo and he's doing the whole the shoulder roll like that. Brock Lesnar would have been proud with the level of shoulder rolling and hand wringing that was happening in the background. So it was a little much, but it was fine. Got to hype up that match. CM Punk was next, so skip. I'm just kidding. I hate CM Punk. Everyone knows that. I wish I could have skipped this, but I had to sit down and watch it through. Big D would have gotten that joke. And as he came down, I was like, he's wearing a really long scarf. Like he's doing like an MJF thing with a scarf. And then I realized, oh, he's wearing a strap. And then I realized, oh, Big D was right again. So Big D, you are the Nostradamus of pro wrestling because you immediately said after the whole thing with him getting whipped with the belt last week that it's going to be a strap match. And Big D, you were right. It's going to be a strap match. Now, it took CM Punk a very long time just talking. And CM Punk has become, in my eyes, the new Mick Foley. So it's cheap pops where he comes out and goes, hey, Florida, home of the championship Panthers. And it sounds like every time he gets out there and starts running his mouth, it sounds like when Mick Foley would go, like, right here in San Jose, and then do the thumbs up. So that's what CM Punk does now. It's like the fans. You know, I was over, he was at the thing in New York that they were doing for the fans, whatever it was, WrestleCon or whatever it was. Yeah, he was out there and he's like, yeah, I was talking to someone in the back and someone in the back was saying, you know, why is WWE on such a hot streak? And then he goes, why do you, CM Punk, think you're on a hot streak? And I was like, CM Punk's not on a hot streak. CM Punk lost. But I know they were talking about WWE in general. But I was like, this clearly didn't happen. And he's like, well, the answer is you, the fans. And then just went on for like 7 minutes of fans are great, blah, blah, blah. Yes, we know CM Punk, but you don't have to come out and kiss up to the fans every single time. The other thing that he did after that 7 minutes was he finally gave the news of it's going to be a strap match. And then Drew came out and they continued trash talking back and forth. And this whole thing kind of went on too long for me because it just really wasn't all that meaningful. But yes, they're going to have a strap match coming up at Bash in Berlin. So after that, we got a Dom and Liv pre-tape promo. So if Rhea and Damian Priest got the award for most shoulder shrugging and shoulder rolls and hand wringing, Dom's and Liv's was lots of smirking and swaying. It was lots of smirking and swaying. So that they kind of did that and smirked and swayed and then did the rotation thing too. So yes, they got a match coming up apparently and got to promote. After this, we got the official match, the New Day and Odyssey Jones versus the Final Testament. Good match, solid overall. They did continue the whole mistrust thing because there was a moment where Kofi tagged himself in on Xavier when his back was turned, and he was like, "Hey, what the heck, man?" And then later on in the match, Kofi's in trouble. He's looking for the hot tag. Xavier and Odyssey both had their hands out. And of course, you expect he's going to tag in Xavier, but of course he doesn't. Instead, he tags in Odyssey, and so Xavier's like, "What the heck, man?" Good match though, solid match. Odyssey Jones looks great. He's a great foil for AOP, specifically for Akam and Razor, because they're both giants and he can manhandle them. I believe he hit Razor with the Journey's End, picks up the win for the team. They all celebrated, and yes, Xavier Woods did celebrate, albeit a bit reluctantly. But overall, good stuff. You know where this is going. Speaking of matches that are heading towards Bad Blood, this is another setup, at least it feels like it is to me, of Kofi and Xavier having their falling out and then facing off at Bad Blood, because you got to start filling up those PLEs. After this, speaking of Bad Blood, Bronson Reed, big Bronson Reed, taking on The Miz. Obviously, Miz out for revenge and retribution for his partner R-Truth, who was absolutely destroyed last week by a wave of tsunamis, pun completely intended, and it was brutal. So he's out for revenge. Didn't want to do it, but he's like, it's not what you want to do. It's something he has to do, and so he went out there and did it. No DQ, which probably a wise choice at this point, because Bronson Reed's not going to play by the rules, and he'll just hit you with 80 tsunamis. So you may as well be able to use tools at your disposal. And that's exactly what The Miz did. So it was a lot of kendo sticks and chair shots. I will say too much no selling here from Bronson Reed. And I understand they've built him up to be this monster heel, but it's almost like this kind of Jacob. They do the same thing with Jacob Fatu over on SmackDown, where he's getting hit with all these objects and they're not doing anything to him. And it's like, well, then this person, he should be competing for the WWE Championship or the World Championship right now, and it should be a lock. If you can no-sell everything and nothing can actually hurt you, he should already be the champion at this point. Although he's screwed up a lot of his opportunities, has Bronson Reed. So it's a little silly that he's completely no-selling everything. There was a tornado DDT, I believe, on a chair, and then he kicked out at one, and that was after he had absorbed a lot of damage. And so, of course, Reed ended up winning. He hit the tsunami. He hit a Death Valley driver through the table with The Miz, then hit the tsunami. And then before he could start his multiple tsunamis, he was going to do the same thing he was going to do before, starts climbing up. Braun Strowman's music hit. We haven't seen Braun in a few weeks. He was too busy doing the Benny Hill sketches with chasing around the Judgment Day every single week. Well, he's back now, and he's picking on somebody his own size. Thank God. This is a good thing. Have a decent foil. I'm assuming that they're going to have Bronson Reed come out on top of this, or at least start selling some offense, or at least look somewhat vulnerable against Braun Strowman. But it gives Braun something to do. The big boys are going to compete, I believe. They're coming up on Monday Night Raw, actually. This week they've set up the match. So, should be a good one. Looking forward to that. After this, we had the Braun Breaker promo, as I adjust my ball cap here. Braun Breaker, and it was the backstage promo, where he was basically talking about, they can't find a opponent for him, so they're going to do an Intercontinental tournament, it sounds like, to select his opponent. And I noticed something this week, though. And I know you all are going to say I'm crazy. So when I do a short for this one, I'm going to put up some photos for comparison. And go back and watch this promo. Go back and watch the Braun Breaker promo, because he kind of looks like and kind of speaks like a buff Seth Rogen. Like, look at his face, the expressions that he was making. Not necessarily the sound of his voice, but it was more of the kind of how he spoke and the cadence that he spoke with, because he was talking about he at one point he was like, hey, it's not my fault that I'm a badass, and the way he said it and the expression that he made, I'm like, that's such a Seth Rogen way to say that. And then he kind of had the same look on his face, and as I started looking at photos, I was like, yeah, there's a resemblance there. So now you can't unsee it. Braun Breaker is buff Seth Rogen, and there's a tournament coming up. After this, we had Dominic Mysterio versus Damian Priest. It was a one-on-one match. Damien got ambushed by the entire Judgment Day, essentially as he was coming out, and then he took everybody out. And then Rhea was there, and then she jumped in and then kind of cleared the announce table because she was going to try to, I believe, put Dominic through the announce table with a riptide, is what it looked like she was going to try to do. And then Liv jumped out, blindsided her with a chair. And then the clear 5-on-2 numbers game this week did not play out well for Damien and Rhea Ripley. They both got absolutely destroyed. They got beat down, dragged them both back into the ring and stood over them the whole time. Everybody's like, with their hands raised. And it was just kind of funny where they kind of put their bodies on top of each other. And it's like, they're like both unconscious and like cradled. And I'm thinking, like, how did it go when the cameras went off and they had to clear the ring? Were they just like, all right, peace, and they just left him there and just walked off, and then they just both slowly rolled out? Like, I get the big visual of them like holding their hair and like they've just executed them. But at some point they all had to get up and leave, so we didn't get to see that. But yeah, so now Judgment Day getting one over on Damien and Rhea Ripley. We'll see what happens on next week's episode, the episode before Bash at the Beach, but Bash at Berlin. I keep doing that. Bash at Berlin. So it should be a good one. After this, we had Io Sky and Kairi Sane versus Shayna Baszler and Zoe Stark versus Alba Fire and Isla Dawn for the women's tag titles. So it was the triple threat match. Honestly, I thought this was going to be at Bash at Berlin, but this, and I remembered about it, that Jade Cargill and Bianca Belair, I believe, are competing for the titles there, so they had this one first. Good match, solid match overall. It was kind of obvious, though, that Alba Fire and Isla Dawn were not going to lose at this point, since they've got them booked coming out for the PLE, so they wouldn't lose here. Did end up picking up the win. Solid match, good match overall. Somewhat predictable, though, at this point. And then we saw them again on SmackDown, so... main event time. Randy Orton taking on Ludwig Kaiser. And this one really was just like an extended squash match. Like, Randy was just cruising the whole time. Gunther did intervene with some distractions. But it was basically just him like beating up Kaiser, get him out of the ring, bounce his head off the announce table, roll back into the ring to reset the count, and kind of toyed with him. He did hit the RKO for the win. And then it was at that point Gunther jumped in and they started brawling. And then if you were watching on USA like I was, they cut off during the middle of the brawl. And I'm like, you guys got to figure out the time thing. Can't wait for it to be on Netflix when you don't have to worry about them cutting to like old episodes of CSI Miami or Hawaii Five-0, because that's essentially what happened when they went off air. But solid show overall. I mean, I'd give it it's all the setup that's coming up for the PLEs, continuation of storylines. I'll give it a B overall. Just because I felt like the wrestling wasn't awesome on this episode. So that takes us into SmackDown. And the SmackDown opened up with Grayson Waller and Austin Theory and the Grayson Waller effect doing an interview with Cody Rhodes. I actually thought it was kind of funny because when they called Cody out, they did cut off his entrance. Like, once he got up to the ring post, they're like, all right, enough. You got to do the pyro. You got to do the dumb whoa thing in the middle of the stage. So we're done, and cut him off. And then he tried to do what do you want to talk about? And then Waller cut him off again and was like, hey, yeah, we get it. What do you want to talk about? We know everything's about you. And I generally don't like Grayson Waller, but that I actually found pretty funny. I thought this was pretty good. It was a pretty good shtick. And then Waller, of course, ironically ran down Cody Rhodes for being a bad friend and allowing KO and Randy Orton to take beatings for him, which is true. I mean, he did, and that he was a pretty bad friend. And of course, quite obviously, Cody Rhodes countered that and pointed out that Waller was not a good friend to Austin Theory and was always Theory was always sacrificing his body for Waller. And they do the whole, hey, don't try to make this about us. We're rock solid, blah, blah, blah. And then Waller played a video montage of all the times KO betrayed his friends, which I actually thought that was pretty good as well. Showing even using Chris Jericho footage where Chris Jericho's like, you got me a new list. Wait, my name's on it. So they ran through all the times when he betrayed Sami Zayn. And so he goes through that. KO did come down at this point once the montage was over and just said, hey, apart from Kofi Kingston, everyone else he betrayed had it coming. Which was funny because I think of everyone they showed, well, I mean, Sammy's not really a heel, but Kofi's obviously pretty beloved. So he was like, hey, sorry, Kofi, that was my bad. but everyone else had it coming. So definitely sowing the seeds for a heel turn here because I'm technically speaking, I think Cody Rhodes does have it coming, based off of the fact that he did kind of hang Randy Orton and Randy Orton and Kevin Owens out to dry quite a bit. So it's still there. It feels like they're definitely heading towards that. I do think it might happen the night before on the SmackDown on next Friday night, or maybe just at the PLE. So the still sowing the seeds there. At this point, though, KO just did the whole, hey, this is when we'd run down, and then we'd have a fight, and then we'd make a tag match later. So let's just cut to the chase. Can we call out Nick Aldis and make a tag match? And they made a tag match. So main event is going to be Waller and Theory versus Cody Rhodes and Kevin Owens in a tag match was the main event. So interesting. I don't like having Waller and Theory again in the main event. I feel like they get pushed an awful lot. I love Austin Theory. Grayson Waller, kind of lukewarm on. Next up was I'll call this one my match tonight. There were a lot of really good matches on SmackDown, actually. There were no stinkers, there were no duds. From a wrestling standpoint, I was pretty happy. So this one was the United States Championship on the line. LA Knight taking on Santos Escobar. You had Angel Umberto attack LA Knight like before the bell was rung while he was out there, and they were like, "This is all legal," and I'm like, "No, it's not." Like, couldn't Nick Aldis come out and go, "Hey, we're calling the match off," because they're like, "No, he has to continue to compete. If he doesn't, and the bell rings," and it's like, guys, like they jumped him clearly. They could totally call this off, but so it was the commentators trying to create fake drama, because they did attack him right before, the ref tossed everybody. So she tossed Angel Umberto. She essentially cleared out Legado del Fantasma. And then match started. We went to commercial for a bit, came back. LA Knight was cruising after the commercial break. And then Santos Escobar rallied. It was a really competitive match. It was very fluid. It was high paced the whole time. It was a lot of fun. Again, me for match of the night. KNIGHT, no pun intended. LA Knight did a standing on the second rope, jumped to the top rope, hit the elbow drop, kind of a la Macho Man style elbow drop, and then followed up with a BFT for the win. So excellent match. Of course, you knew LA Knight was going to win. That's not really a surprise. It's early on. It was his first official title defense, but very fun stuff, even though it was a predictable outcome. After that, we got a promo with Andrade and Carmelo. Teasing a match next week because they're going to run it back again. I mean, I love seeing these two. They're great, but they're just kind of having them wrestle matches every other week against each other. Should be another great one. Should be a lot of fun. Maybe we'll get a number one contender for LA Knight's United States Championship out of this one. Who knows? And then after that, we had a backstage promo with Apollo Crews and Baron Corbin and Legado del Fantasma. So I guess they kind of jawed back and forth, and I guess they're going to have a tag match next week, is what it sounds like as well. Speaking of tag matches, which was the theme for most of the night, we came up next on the 6-woman tag match. So it was Alba Fire and Isla Dawn, who we had just seen on Monday Night Raw, teaming with Blair Davenport versus Jade Cargill, Bianca Belair, and Naomi. This one was really solid. I will say Bianca did most of the heavy lifting in this one. It was mostly her being isolated by the champs and then Davenport. And kind of a lot of them, when they went back to the commercial and came back, it was like, hey, the heels have changed partners several times and Bianca's still in there. And they kind of did the usual. They're waiting for the hot tag and building the anticipation, which eventually Jade was the one who got the hot tag, and she ran wild. And I will say she looked pretty great here doing it. I love Jade Cargill, but I've been very honest about some of the shortcomings that she's had in the ring and some of the struggles that she's had and the inconsistency. She looked really solid here. Everything looked clean. Everything looked pretty strong. Her timing is pretty good. So much better. And then Naomi was able to get a tag after that. And she got her offense in. At the end, there was a lot of spots and people jumping out of the ring and doing splashes outside of the ring and taking folks out. So this one was really, really great as well. And a lot of wild exchanges. Naomi was the one who actually picked up the win. So she hit Blair with a springboard moonsault, picking up the win for her team, which I think kind of makes sense. You weren't going to have Alba Fire Isla Dawn get pinned. So it's probably going to be Davenport. They're doing the rivalry with Naomi and Blair. Makes sense. I liked it. It was really, really good. After this, we had the Bloodline out next, and it was kind of obvious this was leading into the tag match with the Street Profits because it was going to be the WWE or the WWE tag team titles on the line. Bloodline versus the Street Profits. Street Profits were the number one contenders now. But they started off with Solo going down to the ring, and then Solo essentially says that there was something wrong with the tag titles, and he told Jacob Fatu to step up. Then told him to give him the title, and then said, "You know what? Better yet, give it to Tonga Loa, who is now eye patch free." And Jacob kind of looked a little perplexed and a little upset at first, but did comply. And he kind of handed the title over, and he was like, "Hey, here's how to hold it properly," because apparently you have to tell Tonga Loa how to do everything. He's made a lot of very public mistakes that are quite hilarious. So he hands him the title. And he told, or Solo told Jacob that Jacob was being promoted to personal enforcer. And I'm like, I thought that's pretty much what he already was. Like, I know he's a bloodline enforcer, and he only takes orders from Solo. So doesn't that really just make you the personal enforcer? I feel like it's like when they say you're senior manager. You're a manager? No, you're senior manager. And it's like, well, am I doing anything different? Not really. So he gave him a promotion. Maybe he got a pay raise. I don't know. Jacob looked like he was okay with it. He was pretty happy. And then right after that, Street Profits and BFAB came down and they were like, hey, we don't care about promotions. We don't care about all this and all this family stuff. We got a match coming up right now, because they did have a match coming up right then. And then we went to commercial, and then we came back, and right before the match started between the Bloodline and Street Profits, LA Knight was in the back, and he issued an open challenge in Berlin against anyone with a tingle in their loins. Interesting qualification, but okay. So he's doing an open challenge for the U.S. title at Bash of Berlin, so that'll be interesting and fun. Hopefully he wins it. Maybe we'll get something exciting or some exciting surprise. I'm betting the surprise will be Carmelo Hayes or Andrade, or maybe both, and it'll be a triple threat. I don't know. They like to do that. But then we went into Bloodline versus Street Profits. So this one was really good as well, which I was saying continued the theme of tag matches. So we had 3 tag matches to close out the show. It was the 6-woman match. You had this one, of course, the main event. So this one was really good. Both teams are excellent, although I think I would have rather have seen, and I probably enjoyed it a little bit more if Jacob Fatu had been wrestling versus Tonga Loa. Obviously, Jacob's just really great in the ring. I get what they're doing here from the storytelling aspect. And of course, he's got the boot on his foot. So he really does have an injury that he's working through. So that plays into it as well. Match was going really well. Of course, there were shenanigans. At one point, you had Solo distract the referee. Jacob Fatu took out both Dawkins and Ford with super kicks. And then Tama Tonga was able to pick up the win and got the cover on Angelo Dawkins, I believe. So after that, there was a beatdown was on, and then DIY ran down to make the save. But then they all got taken down by the Bloodline. Match was really good. The save from DIY didn't work. No Roman Reigns appearance either. So I was kind of half expecting, was he going to come down and interfere? No, they're like, hey, Roman's gone. He's not coming back, blah, blah, blah. Obviously, he's coming back. So he had the week off, didn't make any appearances, unfortunately. After this, we got the Michin promo coming up because she's going to be competing against Nia Jax. And more slapstick between Tiffany Stratton, Pretty Deadly, and Nia Jax as they were talking about trying to repair her crown. And then as they all shuffled away to fix Nia's crown, which had been damaged by Michin the week before, we have Piper and Green kind of hanging out in the back, right, like 2 feet away from them. I don't know how they didn't see them. And then just kind of openly talking as if Nia can't hear them. Again, they're 2 feet away. About how clearly Tiffany was going to try to betray her, sowing the seeds of mistrust. We like to do that. It was fun stuff that sets the table for Nia versus Tiffany, which is obviously going to happen at some point. She will attempt to cash in. We'll see if it's successful or not. Main event time. Making record time. Speed talking. Cody and Kevin Owens versus Austin Theory and Grayson Waller. This was kind of billed as the full-time tag team versus 2 great individuals, which is the way that they justify making it competitive. Since the truth is, Austin Theory and Grayson Waller shouldn't really have a chance here against KO and the world champion, the WWE champion, Cody Rhodes. But that's how it is. Hey, these guys are a real tag team. These guys have only tag teamed a few times together. This one was good. It was fine. I think it suffered because there were 2 great tag matches before it. So in comparison, it did kind of pale, and it felt like a little bit of a letdown. Cody was the one isolated for most of this one, with KO getting the hot tag and running wild. Owens did hit the pop-up powerbomb and to pick up the win for his team. Predictable, solid match. And again, it just wasn't as good as the earlier tag matches for me. No betrayal and no swerve, but even in the celebration at the end, KO was very jubilant and like holding up Cody's hand and all that. And Cody was the one who seemed a little timid. He was like looking at his title, and he was the one looking a little strange. So maybe Cody has the heel turn. I don't know. We'll see. But that was it. SmackDown gets an A for me. I wasn't disappointed by any of the matches. While I say that the main event was a little bit of a letdown, I think just comparatively speaking to the other tag matches, it just wasn't as good. But it was still really, really good. So I'm going to give the show an A. And I don't usually give out A's. So that leads us into next week. We've got the shows leading up to Bash at Berlin, and we will be, next time you see Big D and myself, we'll be talking about the Bash at Berlin. And we've got a few predictions, so Big D did share those with me as well. So I'm going to share them with you. So, tag title match, Bianca Belair and Jade Cargill versus Alba Fire and Isla Dawn. Big D is picking Bianca and Jade to win the tag titles. I'm going to pick Alba and Isla to retain. I still feel like it's too early for them to lose the titles at this point. I think there'll be some shenanigans of some kind. Maybe you have something happen to sow the seeds of dissent between Bianca and Jade, because it does feel like that they are eventually going in that direction. Next up, you've got CM Punk with taking on Drew McIntyre in the strap match. And Big D is predicting a CM Punk win in a brutal and bloody strap match. And I would agree with that as well. Also because I don't think it makes sense. CM Punk lost in their first match at Survivor Series. Or at SummerSlam, excuse me. They lost in the match at SummerSlam, so I don't think it would make sense for him to go down 0-2. What will happen is it'll go one-on-one. You're going to have CM Punk win here, and then they'll do the rubber match, the blow-off match at Bad Blood, which I don't know if I want to see a third match between these two, but I think that's where it's going, so I will agree with Big D on this one. Next up, we've got Dom and Liv versus Rhea and Damian Priest. Big D's got Dom Liv will win thanks to Judgment Day shenanigans, which will set up Finn versus Damian for Bad Blood. 100% agree with all of that. I think that's how it goes down as well. I don't see Damian and Rhea being victorious in this one. I think the numbers game will continue to add up. Maybe they'll add a member until they'll be the Twin Terrors, and then they'll become the Terror Triplets, and they'll add somebody. I don't know. But at this point, still think the heels are gonna pull this one off. You've got Cody Rhodes versus Kevin Owens. Big D has Cody retaining against Kevin Owens, but that Kevin Owens will turn on him either Friday or Saturday right after losing. I would agree with that as well. I think that there's a heel turn coming from KO. Cody obviously is not going to lose this matchup. That would totally ruin the whole finishing the story thing. So that won't happen. So I think we're aligned on this one. And then finally, we've got Gunther versus Randy Orton for the World Heavyweight Championship. Big D has Gunther retaining, and he says, even though it would be awesome to see Randy break the record. I completely agree, because there's no way they're going to have Randy. Now, that would be the ultimate swerve, is if they had Randy Orton beat Gunther in Berlin. Would be ironic, because they like having people losing their hometowns and home countries. I don't think it'll happen here. I do think Gunther's going to have a long title reign. I do think it would be awesome to see Randy Orton get that record. But I'm cool with Ric Flair holding on to that record. Yeah, I think it'll be Gunther as well. And that's it, ladies and gentlemen. We made it. Just little old me. Kept it short and sweet this week. Appreciate you tuning in as always. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. And then leave us comments if you agree with us, disagree with us, indifferent, or all that good stuff. We love to hear from you. We appreciate the support as always. And until next week, we will see you all. We'll see you all at the Bash Berlin recap show. And again, appreciate all the support. Have a great rest of your week, y'all. We'll talk soon.